Mysterious message from Moses. Ancient Egyptian mine inscription may contain name of Moses. A controversial clue supporting the biblical Exodus. A groundbreaking and controversial discovery in an ancient Egyptian mine has sparked renewed debate over the historical accuracy of the Bible, particularly the book of Exodus. Researcher Michael Barron has claimed that a 3,800-year-old inscription found in the Sinai Peninsula may contain a direct reference to Moses, potentially offering archaeological support for the biblical account of the Israelites' enslavement and eventual escape from Egypt. Now let's get into the thick of it in today's AI podcast episode.
Okay, imagine this. A historical figure you only know from, say, ancient texts, old stories. Now, what if suddenly, bang, archaeologists find their name, etched in stone, thousands of years old, something that could actually rewrite history as we know it? Today, we're diving into exactly that kind of tension. We're looking at this potentially massive discovery, but also at the tough questions, the skepticism from scholars. So the big question, has an inscription in Sinai really given us Moses? Or is it?
Yeah.
Well, something else.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating isn't just, the name itself. It's what it could mean, what it might imply for how we understand a really key moment in history. But deciphering these ancient scripts, it's incredibly difficult. And often the most exciting claims, they're the ones that get looked at the hardest. That's what we're exploring today.
Right, that complexity. And that's exactly why the details here are so important. So what is this inscription? Where exactly did they find it? Can you sort of paint a picture for us? How old are we talking?
Okay, so we're talking about an inscription that's roughly 3,800 years old. It was found etched right into the rock. The location is an old Egyptian turquoise mining site out of the Sinai Peninsula, Serabit el-Kadin. Specifically, it's Mine L, near another known inscription, Sinai 357, and the date puts it around 1800 BCE, so Egypt's 12th dynasty.
Wow, okay.
And the script itself is key here. It's Proto-Sinaitic, which is, one of the absolute earliest alphabetic scripts we know about. It looks like it was developed by Semitic-speaking workers, laborers, right there in those mines.
Proto-Sinaitic. Okay, that sounds really significant. Why is that script so important here? And how does that connect us to this claim about Moses?
It's totally crucial. And this is where the researcher Michael Barron comes in. He's the one who spent, nearly a decade looking at this inscription, using high-res images, 3D scans, the works. And his interpretation, the controversial part, is that one specific phrase reads, Zot Mamosha, which is a Hebrew phrase, meaning this is from Moses.
This is from Moses. Well,
exactly. And if he's right, this would be the very first archaeological mention of Moses ever found. Barron thinks it might mean he wrote it, or it's a dedication, maybe even just a symbolic thing. But connect that to the bigger picture.
Well, the implications for biblical archaeology are potentially huge, especially for the Exodus story, right? Where Moses is the absolute central figure leading the Israelites out of Egypt.
Okay, so Barron puts forward this massive claim. He thinks he's found Moses' name. But like you said, these things get scrutinized. I can't imagine everyone just accepted it. What's the pushback? Where's the skepticism coming from?
Right, exactly. This is where it gets really interesting and complicated. You have someone like Dr. Thomas Schneider. He's an Egyptologist at the University of British Columbia. And he's been pretty critical. He basically calls the interpretation speculative, even misleading. His point is that Proto-Sinaitic, well, these aren't alphabetic letters as we know them today. That's a direct quote. And just assigning modern meanings, especially without really solid linguistic grounding, you risk kind of making connections that maybe aren't actually there. Fabricating connections. Yeah,
and it really highlights the challenge, Deciphering scripts this early is tough. You need consistent methods. It's not like reading a fully formed alphabet. Symbols might mean different things, or you might only have a few examples to compare with. So every single proposed reading gets put under the microscope.
I get that. Sounds like working with a really ancient puzzle, but with half the pieces missing. But does Barron have any backup? Anyone supporting his reading?
He does, yeah, to some extent. His own academic advisor, Dr. Peter van der Veen, has actually backed the Zot Mamosh reading. Van der Veen apparently said, "You're absolutely correct. I read this as well. It is not imagined." So that's significant support. And Barron himself, he insists he was careful. He says he looked at other possibilities, tried not to jump to sensational conclusions. He actually said something like, the only way to do serious work is to try to find elements that seem biblical and then struggle to find alternative explanations that are at least as plausible.
Okay, so he's aware of the need for caution.
Right. But here's the really crucial thing for you listening. While this is all very compelling, Barron's work hasn't actually been published in a peer-reviewed journal yet. And that's, the standard process. It's how new academic ideas get vetted and gain wider acceptance in the scholarly community.
That's a really important piece of context, definitely. But wait, this whole story isn't just about one name, is it? You mentioned Barron's research was broader. It sounds like he found more than just this one inscription, revealing something bigger happening in these mines.
Oh, absolutely. His study wasn't just focused on that one phrase. He looked at, I think, 22 inscriptions from the mines, and most of them date to the reign of Pharaoh Amenemhat III, who, interestingly enough, is a pharaoh. Some scholars have sort of speculated could be the pharaoh from the Exodus story, though that's also debated, of course.
Okay, interesting connection there.
Yeah, and what Barron's wider study shows is this really complex, maybe even volatile religious scene among the workers. You see inscriptions mentioning Elul, that's an early Israelite god. You find him in the Hebrew Bible. But right alongside Ella, there are references to Baalat. She's the Canaanite goddess, kind of the counterpart to the Egyptian goddess Hathor, who was worshipped right there at the mining site.
So you've got these different religious groups, Semitic workers maybe, side by side, referencing their different gods.
Exactly. And more than that, there seems to be conflict. What's really fascinating is the physical evidence of this conflict, like etched right into the stone. Barron found places where references to Baalat seem to have been deliberately scratched out, or even written over by scribes who were clearly El worshippers.
Wow, like ancient religious graffiti wars.
Kind of. Barron sees these as clear signs of a growing religious clash. He calls it a potential theological rebellion within the Semitic labor community. He even described the site as ground zero for this conflict. And there's more. There's evidence things got maybe heated. A temple that was built for Baalat under Amenemhat III actually shows signs that it was burned at some point.
Burned. Okay, that suggests serious unrest.
It certainly could. And other inscriptions found there mention things like slavery, overseers. And there's this clear rejection of Baalat. It all hints at deep dissatisfaction. There's even this one phrase, really evocative, mentioning the gate of the accursed one. Barron thinks that might be a direct shot at the pharaoh, a rejection of Egyptian authority, a desire for freedom, both spiritual and, physical.
So this paints a picture of Semitic workers, possibly under duress, maybe experiencing a religious awakening or conflict, and potentially pushing back against Egyptian rule.
That seems to be the picture Barron is painting, yes. And if you think about the broader context, we do have other archaeological hints, things like the stele of Reneseneb, or a seal found belonging to a high-ranking Asiatic official. These suggest that Semitic-speaking people, perhaps Hebrews, were actually quite integrated into Egyptian society around this time. It connects, in a way, to stories like Joseph in Genesis, right? Sold into Egypt rises high. It suggests a significant Semitic presence before any potential Exodus event.
Okay, so it sets a plausible stage.
It could. And just to add one more layer, Barron believes he found a second possible reference to Moshe in some nearby carvings as well, though he notes the context for that second one is a bit less clear.
But still another intriguing piece from his decade of work.
Okay, so let's try to wrap our heads around this. Where does this leave us? We've got this incredibly exciting possibility from Michael Barron's research. A potential name, Moses, evidence of religious conflict, maybe even rebellion, all potentially linking to the Exodus narrative in a tangible way. But then we have the very necessary caution from mainstream scholars, the need for that peer review, the linguistic scrutiny. It feels like this discovery has just thrown fuel on a fire that's been burning for centuries, hasn't it? The debate about history versus story in the Bible.
It really has. And look, if it's still as significant. If these inscriptions genuinely do mention Moses, and if they really document this kind of Semitic rebellion leading to a large-scale departure, then yeah, they could offer some seriously tantalizing, maybe even concrete evidence for events that many have long considered purely mythological or faith-based. But as we said, until the work goes through the full peer review process, gets examined intensely by other experts in the field, the question just hangs there, really. Is this truly an echo of Moses we're hearing from the Sinai sands? Or is it perhaps just another ancient mystery that's kind of lost in translation?
And that really leaves you, the listener, with something to think about, doesn't it? How does new evidence like this, even if it's still debated, challenge or maybe confirm the beliefs we hold about the past? And how crucial is that scholarly consensus, that rigorous checking process, in actually shaping what we understand as history? It's a question that shows history is never really finished. It's always unfolding.
Inscription be the first archaeological evidence of Moses' existence. Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.